Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Happy Friday. It's Friday, June 26th. Great to be with you on a Friday morning and every morning here on EWTN's Catholic Connection. Wishing you a blessed Friday and a great weekend as we are heading into the big 4th of July festivities a week away. Most of the country will have July 3rd off. That will be kind of like the official holiday, federal holiday off. And then, of course, next Saturday is 4th of July. And so much to celebrate in between. A lot of different events going on. And then next Friday, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but just you can look forward to it and keep us on all the time. We have a very patriotic special edition of the show for Friday that we're putting together for you, so you don't want to miss that. But speaking of programs, let's stick to the matter at hand, and let's take a look at the rundown for today. Because it is a Friday, we will check in with the wonderful Peter Gagnon, our president of EWTN Studios, and we will take a look at the Inside Word. Now, you can imagine all the amazing programming we have coming up in the next week. It's going to be incredible. So just make sure you stay tuned to EWTN. And for all the information, if you can't remember something you heard on the air, just go to our website at EWTN.com. So for Fact Check Friday today, I thought you would really enjoy a little bit more of an explanation of the wonderful Summer Academy from EWTN. As you know, I spoke there on Wednesday afternoon. It was delightful. I did mention it yesterday. But I wanted to spend some more time on this because when we're talking about facts and Fact Check Friday, which is the whole reason I started this segment several years ago to take a look at the media, it was so refreshing and so encouraging for me and Deacon Dom to be among so many talented young people who are dedicated to communications. And they were just delightful. And I had a really good response to my talk, and they had a ton of questions. But what I love so much about this program is that they are learning such great information, and not just information. They're learning a lot of practical skills. They're learning presentation on TV, radio, in new media. They're learning about cameras. They're learning about writing skills. There's a difference for writing for radio and writing for television and writing for print. And they're getting a lot on ethics as well. So it's really wonderful. And I want to share this with you because you're helping put this on by your support and your prayers. All the different programming we do on camera, on radio, online, and behind the scenes in terms of conferences, you are helping. And think about the investment that you're making, not only in evangelization through, obviously, the typical media, but in training future journalists, and more specifically, faith-filled journalists who are planning on going into some sort of Catholic communications, which is so important. So we'll talk about that through our Fact Check Friday segment. And then we are going to be talking with Peter Breen, who's Executive Vice President and Head of Litigation at the Thomas More Society. California, the AG there, the Attorney General, is suing Heartbeat International. I kid you not. How about all these people who say that those of us in the pro-life movement don't care about the women? And yet here's Heartbeat International, where they care about the whole family and they do such great work and have for decades, and they're being sued by the Attorney General of California. So we'll take a look at that story. Second hour of the program. In 2 cents, I do want to talk a little bit just about patriotism and the importance of reporting on that patriotism and reporting, obviously, on other things that are important to us, including the Catholic Church. An interesting story that developed regarding Germany and women in homilies and what the media are saying about the Vatican's response, in addition to some comments about religious liberty for the upcoming 4th of July holiday. And then we'll wrap up in hour number 2, taking a look at the latest research from the American Beliefs Study regarding the Catholic response to using AI at the parish level. Terry Poplava has been with us before, and he's going to be joining us for 2 segments in the second hour of Catholic Connection on EWTN Radio Extra. Let's take a look at the weather. There's all kinds of issues going on, and we will make sure that we get to it also in the news. We'll have a more detailed story. Praying for the people in Japan and also in Venezuela, 2 major earthquakes. Closer to home here in the U.S., extreme fire weather concerns for the western part of the country, severe weather and flooding threats for the central part of the U.S., extremely critical fire weather conditions developing across the Great Basin and the Southwest today, and there will be very dry and windy conditions, promoting rapid wildfire spread throughout the weekend. Now, scattered severe thunderstorms and heavy rains are possible across parts of the Ozark Plateau into the lower Ohio Valley and parts of the northern Rockies into the Great Plains. That's a look at your rundown and your forecast. It is a Friday morning. It's June 26, 2016. We appreciate your listenership. Hope so far you're having a great day and an early start to the great weekend that's ahead of all of us. Thanks be to God. Let's get started at 5 minutes past the hour with the news here at EWTN's Catholic Connection. Pope Leo sending an initial €100,000 in emergency donations to Venezuela. Vatican News reporter James Blears reports from the ground on rescue efforts, meanwhile, that continue following devastating earthquakes that have killed at least 235 people and left widespread destruction.
Rescue teams are searching scores of collapsed buildings following the Wednesday evening quakes, which measured 7.2 and then 7.5. Caracas's Simón Bolívar airport is closed, but the main epicenter of the disaster is in the coastal city of Quera, to the north of the capital, Caracas. Such was the force of the twin quake that its deadly ripples were felt throughout the entire continent of the Americas. President Delcy Rodriguez has declared a state of disaster and emergency. Interior Minister Diosdado Caballo is advising people to stay outside wrecked infrastructure in the dusty open air. The damage is massive and widespread. The death toll will rise as the extent of the sheer devastation unfolds in its terrible enormity. For Vatican Radio, James Blears reporting.
The U.S. is also sending crews and supplies to Venezuela following the powerful earthquakes that toppled buildings and, as you just heard, left many trapped under rubble. Speaking of Bahrain, Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying help is on the way from the states.
We're already deploying search and rescue teams from Fairfax County, Virginia, and Los Angeles. There'll be some others we'll add. That's their most immediate need right now, is search and rescue efforts.
At least 235 people are dead, with that number expected to rise, and 4,300 people reported missing as a result of the earthquakes. And again, the president of Venezuela declaring a state of emergency. In other news this morning, the U.S. Supreme Court siding with President Trump on border policy issues. John Fink has that story.
The justices ruled the federal government can turn back some asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border without hearing their claims right away. The practice known as metering limits how many people can apply each day and has been used by both Republican and Democratic administrations. The court says federal law does not require a claim to be processed if a migrant has not set foot on U.S. soil. The ruling could allow the policy to return, which may affect crossings at busy ports like those in San Diego. I'm John Fink.
The U.S. bishops, meanwhile, had urged the government to extend protected status, including for Haitians who are a majority Catholic community. They petitioned the Supreme Court to rule against the policy and require the government to process all asylum claims. You can learn more on that part of the story from EWTNnews.com. President Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson having a meeting at the White House last night. Afterward, Johnson said he and the president discussed members of the House Freedom Caucus, saying they will oppose any procedural rules until the Save American Voting ID Act passes, effectively stopping all business in the House.
Very productive meeting. We're on exactly the same page. He wants to ensure that we stop any blockade in the House. Congress has work to do, and that's what we're going to do. And so we'll be moving forward on all of that.
After the meeting with Johnson, Trump indicated he agreed no more grandstanding pleas. Earlier this week, the president said he would not sign the bipartisan housing measure again until the Save America Act was passed. Johnson now says Congress will send the bill to Trump to sign, but did not specify when that would happen. Mark Mayfield tells us Iran is being accused of attacking a Singapore-flagged ship in the Strait of Hormuz.
U.S. officials told Fox News there were no casualties, but the incident comes during a tenuous time in the new U.S.-Iran peace deal. Freedom of navigation in the strait is a key point in the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding, with the U.S. demanding Iran never charge tolls. But Iran says they could enforce fees after the current 60-day pause expires. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio attended a meeting of Gulf nations in Bahrain and said those nations are also committed to seeing free flow of maritime traffic in the strait. I'm Mark Neefield.
And the president is welcoming a group of American farmers from across the U.S. to the White House for a dinner in the Rose Garden. Trump says the administration is doing a great deal to help farmers across the country.
We've reduced the agricultural trade deficit just this year by 42%. Opening markets to the American exports, and all over the world we're opening up markets for the farmers.
Trump again saying the Iranian money being unfrozen by the U.S. in the peace agreement would be used to buy food from American farmers. The event comes as Trump has ramped up his efforts to court the group ahead of the midterm elections. This after farmers experience rising fertilizer costs sparked by the Iran war and pressure under the administration's tariff agenda. White House spokesperson Olivia Wales said in a statement there is not a greater champion of American farmers, growers, and ranchers than President Donald Trump. A new English edition of The Lord Holds Us by the Hand offers readers, Vatican News says, a collection of unpublished homilies by Pope Benedict XVI, allowing them to hear once again the voice of Joseph Ratzinger as preacher, theologian, and pastor. The volume, originally published in Italian by Vatican Publishing, gathers homilies delivered between 2005 and 2017 during the liturgical season of Advent, Lent, and Easter. Some were preached in the chapel of the Apostolic Palace, while others were given at Mater Ecclesiae Monastery at the Vatican, where Pope Benedict lived after his resignation from the papacy. Although spoken in private settings, the texts open a window onto the depth and simplicity, the Vatican says, of Benedict XVI's preaching. They reveal his ability to read sacred scripture in an ever new way, drawing from the light of faith, prayer, and daily Christian life. The Texas State Board of Education granting preliminary approval to a planned rewriting of social studies lessons that emphasize Christianity.
We're bringing the Bible back into schools this week for the first time in 60 years.
That's board member Brandon Hall. Children as young as kindergarten would learn about Adam and Eve and the parable of the prodigal son. Final votes are expected today, actually. And the feds are investigating the attack of a Texas woman as a possible hate crime. Police in Longview say they are taking very seriously reports that the attack was motivated by support for Carmelo Anthony, whose murder conviction has inspired a movement of people challenging the jury's decision.
We don't let anger become retaliation, and we do not let social media become judge and jury.
That's Officer Ladarian Brown announced that they have made an arrest but did not release any more details. A victim in a post to social media claims her attackers are looking to, quote, target the smallest white girl they could find, end quote. And as we mentioned in the weather a little bit earlier in this newscast, millions of folks in the western part of the country are sweltering as a heat wave brings triple-digit temps to a wide area. Ryan Chandler has the details.
From southeast California all the way to Lubbock, Texas, seeing triple digits that could extend past 110 degrees. The National Weather Service putting in extreme heat alerts for Arizona, where they warn some parts of that state could see temperatures past 112 degrees.
The intense heat, along with dry and windy conditions, have been fueling wildfires in the mountainous west. The National Weather Service, as you heard earlier, says the hot weather will be moving into the eastern half of the country beginning next week, bringing increasingly humid weather and temperatures all the way into the 90s. That is a look at our news and our weather. When we come back, we will take a look at what's happening in our EWTN program for the next week or so. It's going to be great. Our Inside Word with Peter Gagnon up next. Okay, if you're old school like me, grab your pen and your pad and take notes, because we have always so many great items to discuss in this segment. We call it the Inside Word, and Peter Gagnon is the president of EWTN Studios, joining us now every Friday on this wonderful segment. You can also, of course, go to our website, EWTN.com. But Peter, so much to discuss and such a great time of year, and I imagine we have all kinds of incredible things that we're covering or that we're doing and airing in the next week or so. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Good morning. Great to be here with you. It's a really great highlight of what we do with both live events and special programming, and we do that throughout the year. And I think we'd kick off with the consistory that's happening for the archbishops. We're going to be receiving the pallium. And so the Holy Father met with them today and delivered the message. But if people, it's in the overnight for those in the States. So we're going to encore that today at 3 p.m. So if people want to hear his introductory remarks. And then the Holy Father is also going to do the closing address on Saturday, so at 3 p.m. as well. And then following that, the Holy Father will do the Holy Mass for the solemnity of the feasts of Peter and Paul. And that's when he blesses and gives the pallia to the archbishops, and that'll be on Monday. It airs overnight 3:30 a.m., but we encore it at 11 a.m. Eastern, so people can catch that event. And it's actually a very beautiful event in the life of the church. The regality of it, and just the of the metropolitan archbishops in the pallium, and the symbolism of all of that. So it's a beautiful event. And then the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage continues, and it's on the final leg. And so there's a Mass on Saturday at 4:30 Eastern from the Cathedral of the Holy Cross in Boston. So it's making its way, the pilgrimage, to Philadelphia for the final events. I'll touch upon those in a minute. But it is, also the Feast of Peter and Paul. And so we have a special program called St. Paul, the Apostle, burning for Christ, and it kind of is a witness of his dramatic conversion and his ministry and journeys in proclaiming, God's true saving love. And so it's a great program that'll air on the 28th, and that's at 10 p.m. Eastern. So it's on the vigil of St. Peter and Paul. Mm-hmm. And then we really, besides the Eucharistic pilgrimage that has been going on and leading up to our Independence Day holiday, we have special programming that highlights kind of the history of Catholicism in the U.S. Wow. And so we have several things going on. One is a series we did, or a mini-series we did a while back on Junipero Serra. It's called Serra, Ever Forward, Never Back. So it'll air the 29th through July 3rd, and it looks at, it's kind of a docudrama, very well produced, looking at the travels of Junipero Serra as he traveled and established missions in California. So people can check that out. It's Monday through Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. And then on EWTN Live, Father Mitch is going to welcome Dr. Adam Tate. He's a history professor, and they're going to talk about, the history and the impact of the Catholic faith in the U.S. And so people can tune into EWTN Live. It airs every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And Dr. Tate's just a great guy, really, really impressive scholar, and he's it'd be really great for folks, and it'd be good for younger people to tune into that show to kind of learn the history, because a lot of it's lost. People don't understand the impact that Catholicism had in the U.S. And then we did a special called Holding These Truths Again, Reclaiming Our Founding Principles. This is with Dr. Anthony Rizzi. We shot this at Fort McHenry. And
cool.
Yeah, and he and they're actually going to look at the Catholic foundations of America, and it's really revealing how natural law principles shape the nation, and how those natural law principles remain vital for understanding, our identity. So that debuts July 2nd at 9 p.m., and it will have a couple of encores on July 4th at 9:30 a.m. So Holding These Truths Again, a really nice production that we have. And then special programming on the 4th. If people aren't aware of, we have the In American Apparition, Our Lady of Good Help, and it's, Our Lady of Champion, the shrine in Wisconsin. In the history of that we do have a Marian site here in the United States. And so that'll air on July 4th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. We have another program on Junipero Serra that we did actually with the Archdiocese of San Francisco. So we did this along with Archbishop Corleone, and it's In Search of America's Catholic Founders, Junipero Serra. And it really looks at him in light of today's cultural revisionism. And so, there was a movement to kind of tear down his statues and attack him in the past. And so this is kind of shows how mistaken that understanding is. So that airs July 4th at 2 p.m. And then one thing that it's not associated with the U.S., but it is, July 4th is Pier Giorgio Frassati's feast day. So people can check out the film on him called To the Top. And then finally,
I'm looking at his little holy card that I have right in my office here.
Yeah,
on my desk.
He's fantastic. What a great example.
Yep.
What a great example for young people. And then two other things. We also have the final Eucharistic pilgrimage event. So there's a sung mass from the Cathedral Basilica of St. Peter and Paul in Philadelphia on July 4th at noon. And then on the 5th, there's a closing mass and a Eucharistic procession through the streets of Philadelphia, which is amazing that our Lord is going to be there in one of the key cities of our founding. So just walking through the street. So people should really tune into that. That begins at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And it's actually it's quite a long pilgrimage between the two locations. So it's finalizing the Cabrini route. This was the Mother Cabrini route of the Eucharistic pilgrimage. And we're actually airing that feature film, Cabrini, that came out a few years ago. Beautifully shot film highlighting her life. So that's going to air on July 5th as well. So there's just a lot, you're talking about patriotism. People need to understand the role of Catholicism in our country and how much impact it has, and we need to continue to have in our country to follow
Well, I think,
the
too, in the saints, as you mentioned, Mother Cabrini, and you think of the North American martyrs, you think of so many of these Catholics who had such an impact on our world, and you think, of course, of Fulton Sheen and everything. We have so much to offer in the church, and your point is well taken. I think not just young people, I think a lot of us forget our history, right?
Oh, no, 100%, and that's why we have to bring it back to mind. That's why we offer these programs, and we offer, that's why we bring in these special guests and these experts to help us understand and learn, and that's why even through like Catalog, where we have a lot of great history books associated with that, so people continue to not only build up your devotion, but also get your understanding and learning more about what we've country and actually what a lot of people have gone through in the founding and in the founding fathers and the principles that oftentimes people feel are getting lost in our country. That that there are those of us who are not going to forget and are going to stand up for what our country needs to stand for, and our faith leads the way.
Bill Donahue and I from the Catholic League, we sat down and taped a special interview for next Friday, obviously because we're off for the holiday, but we were talking about our own people remembering the roots of how they got here in the first place. And he's an Irish American immigrant. Obviously, I'm an Italian American immigrant, and what it meant for our families to go through what they went through to come here. And I was thinking, I'm going to mention this in a recording for the network, about seeing my grandparents' and my great-grandparents' name on the wall on Ellis Island, what that meant to me and how that hit me, what they went through to come here, and how they did their best to assimilate. And just this country is such a cool, huge melting pot of so many people with so many different backgrounds. And the church is a huge melting pot, the universal church. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why, things like the events that are happening in Rome, you have metropolitan archbishops from around the world. And it shows that the church is the guide, is the home for all of us to come together. And the U.S. is a great example of that. And, I have immigrant roots as well. My family's from Canada originally and stuff. French Canadian, yeah. My mother was actually born in Canada, so I have those roots, and so and we all come together, and when we come together and focus on our faith, and we build up people, build them up in the faith, in the love of Jesus Christ, we're only going to be, in essence, a successful country because of that, right? Right. And so I hope people will tune in. A lot of these programs are also on our Plus platform, so I want to make sure that people are aware. If they miss it on TV, go to our Plus platform, go to On Demand, our EWTN.com, and you can find it. Peter, thanks so much. Appreciate you being in studio with us this morning and every Friday. Next Friday, of course, we have the day off because of the special holiday for the network and for the country. And happy early 4th to you and your family. We'll be right back. Thank you. Stay tuned. Welcome back. It is 28 minutes past the hour. Do hope you're having a beautiful day on this Friday, June 26, 2026. Wow. 226s. I just noticed that for some reason. Anyhow, I digress. So this is our Fact Check Friday segment that we do every Friday here at EWTN's Catholic Connection. And today, speaking of facts, I want to talk about some facts related to the wonderful, a little bit more detail, about the EWTN Summer Academy, which takes place in Rome every year now. This is the 5th year, and it takes place for almost 2 weeks, 10 days of young people in communications from around the world, not just the United States, but around the globe, learning all about communications. And I've been invited to speak many times, but for whatever reason, the schedule worked out best this year. So this is my first time presenting, and I'll tell you what, Deacon Dom and I came away so encouraged, so hopeful, and so uplifted by these young people who are so dedicated, first and foremost, to the faith, and then secondly, to being great communicators. So let me give you a little bit more information. And what I found so impressive, the practical information that they're learning, as I said at the top of the hour, they are just learning so much and so many crucial skills that's super important for any area of communication today. But just a little background, they give them a wonderful little gift bag, a backpack, and they give them a brochure and a handbook, and it's really cute because in the back of the handbook it has, places to go if you want to go shopping in Rome, and they give them a day at the beach, and it gives them fun Italian phrases, but it also gives them the whole schedule and bios about the speakers. But Andreas Thornhauser, who is the head of the Rome office, says in this introduction to the young people, "Dear participants, you were accepted into this academy in competition with many other highly qualified candidates. We chose you because we believe that your background, skills, and character will contribute to a further community of communicators who want to change the world, who want to achieve not only the impossible, but strive to achieve the impossible." Of course, referencing Mother Angelica's famous quote. "We are committed to bringing the good news into every household of this earth. We are excited that you have come to join us in this mission. The program has been designed to help develop your technical and theoretical knowledge. It will also provide an opportunity to dive deeper into our faith and to better understand the teachings of the Church. While we will not only spend 10 days together, this academy should be considered only the beginning. After the completion of this program, it is our hope that you will join our alumni community, a dynamic group of media professionals from around the globe who share a deep commitment to our faith and to growing in excellence in the field of communications. We will provide this community with additional opportunities to learn, exchange story ideas, job offers, and in-person meetings." So that's a beautiful introduction in their program from the head of the Rome office. And then just to give you an idea of the Summer Academy program, they have Theology of Communications. That was on Tuesday morning, first thing. Then it was Decisively Digital. Then they discussed team building. Then they discussed documenting the life of the church. On Wednesday, when I presented, I was their first talk after going to the general audience. That was one of their assignments, and they had to find their story for their on-camera introduction, or what we call in the business a look live. Okay, I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. So I did an hour-and-a-half presentation on presenting and interviewing in TV, radio, and new media. In the afternoon, they had writing for TV in the age of AI. And then 6 p.m. in the evening on Wednesday, they had a practical assignment in writing your look live. So they had to get an idea on what they were going to discuss based on something they experienced at the audience. So go out and look for their story. And then they have to come back and write their quote-unquote look live, which is their on-camera introduction to their story. That's basically what a look live means. And it's taped as opposed to live, so that's why it's called a look live. So they have to write it, and then they have to present it, and then they have to edit it. So they're doing all areas of putting together a TV piece for this assignment, and that's just one of their assignments of the 10 days that they're there. Then, of course, every day starts, as I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention this, with breakfast, and they pay for all their meals. It's in a lovely location, by the way, on Vatican property. And when they're in class all day long, the windows look out over St. Peter's Square. Talk about inspirational. On Thursday, so that was yesterday, YouTube strategy, finding and engaging your audience, the fundamentals of video editing, practical assignment, presenting your look live on camera, practical assignment, editing your look live. Okay, and then they have a fireside chat, which is really cool. That was last night. And they have someone in the business that just comes in and they sit and they can talk to them and ask them questions. They were taking them to Mass at different places. And actually today they had Mass this morning at St. Paul outside the walls. And then at 11:30 today, meaningful interviews and cinematic visuals. And this afternoon, practical assignment interviewing workshop. I wish I could have been there for that one. And then their final project preview. Okay. So they're giving them a free day on Sunday, which is nice. And they're taking them to another major basilica for Mass. And then they're taking them out to the beach, which I think is great because it's a whole different experience. The beach is not that far from Rome. And there's a whole area along the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, that offers great beach time and just kind of being there and so peaceful being by the water. Then on Monday, they are going to learn about Jesus as a communicator. They'll have another segment on spreading the gospel in a post-Christian world. And then, this is a good one. Gosh, I wish I would be able to go to some of these. They're so good. Newsroom pitching your story. And then, let's see, Tuesday. This is a biggie next week. Dr. Liz Lev is going to be speaking on the way of beauty. And then they'll be editing their final projects. And then Wednesday is their last day on July 1st. They'll have Leadership in Journalism and Alumni Network, final project video presentations, and then a big gala dinner, group photos. How fun. And the setting is absolutely stunning. So this is quite the opportunity. And so in addition to myself, I mentioned Dr. Liz Love. Patrick Leonard from Ireland, who's an award-winning cinematographer, was there. There's another cinematographer who works at the EWTN Bureau. Francis Roca, who's a regular contributor to EWTN. I mentioned Dr. Liz Love, and a whole list of other amazing speakers. And Andreas spoke, the head of the Rome Bureau, to them as well. So just a wonderful opportunity for them to hear from so many different people from so many walks of life in communications. And why am I telling you this? Because I think it's important for you as our dedicated listeners. Many of you support us financially, and we greatly appreciate that. But you need to know, and you just heard a segment from our president of studios, all the quality programming that we're giving you in the next week. All these different shows related to faith, family, and our beautiful birthday in America. But we're also working with your help to train journalists from all over the world. People are there from Mexico, Ecuador, Norway, Ireland, America, and more, to be able to communicate the gospel, the good news, in so many ways in the media. We'll be right back. How many times have you read, heard, or seen a story related to the pro-life movement where we have been criticized for not caring about women? And most of those people who make those false statements, and they're completely false, by the way, have no idea about the incredible movement of pregnancy resource centers and these places like Heartbeat International that for decades have been doing immensely important work in helping women, the babies, the entire family, and the local community. That's why it's so heartbreaking and really utterly ridiculous, but very, very serious when you see these different agencies, government agencies, politicians going after groups like Heartbeat International. Today we're going to talk about California and its lawsuit against Heartbeat and Real Options, seeking to simply silence, and simply I mean they just want to shut them down, shut them up, and they want to do this through fines and money and everything else, to silence pro-life nonprofit organizations. Peter Breen is with us. He's been on us many times. He's the Executive Vice President and Head of Litigation for the Thomas More Society. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Teresa.
All right, so what's the latest in this case?
Well, so we began the trial on Wednesday in Oakland. So it is in Alameda County Superior Court. That covers Oakland and Berkeley. So it's for pro-life folks. That's an interesting part of the country. Very, very much a mission territory. And we began with opening statements from both sides. And the Attorney General made clear, the prosecutor, in his opening, they want over $20 million in fines against Heartbeat and then Real Options, which is a local pregnancy center network there in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. And, of course, these entities don't have $20 million. So this would be bankrupting. They want to bankrupt the country's largest network of pregnancy help centers, 2,000 members nationwide, another 1,000 internationally. I mean, they're out for blood on the other side. And so that is how the case began. And what was interesting to us during that opening, the point of the case is they're saying that we are lying about certain things in this particular case, abortion pill reversal. But, they would have picked any topic. But abortion pill reversal in particular, is where we, the Pregnancy Center movement, help a woman who has begun that 2-pill chemical abortion regimen, but who changes her mind. And that's going to happen. Of course, you take that first pill, immediate regret. And so we get them supplemental progesterone, show them that there's hope. We've got scientific studies showing that there were increased rates of saving those babies if we can get you high-dose progesterone quickly. And so that's all that Heartbeat's doing, just wants to share that message. The AG has said that is false advertising, and again, you're getting this. You want the fines. They want a gag order so that we can't tell women.
But why is it false advertising, though? What's false about it? Because you have the facts, as you said. You even have many women whose children have been saved through abortion pill reversal. The doctor wrote a whole book about it, and who came up with this amazing procedure. I've interviewed him many times. So what's false advertising?
Well, the other side says, well, and this was the thing. So the other side has said, your science isn't good enough.
Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah.
Right, right. So it's always, well, you should have done this. Well, you should have done that. In their opening statement, it was so funny that every time they go, well, the science wasn't quite good enough, and they listed all of the various studies we're relying on, saying, well, this one wasn't good enough, that one wasn't good enough, the other. But what was missing was they had no studies on their end actually showing it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you sit there and go, this isn't, the other side can't prove that it's false or misleading. All they're doing is nitpicking at you. Mm-hmm. And another interesting point, we finished our openings on Wednesday, started into the testimony, and put the state of California put a guy named Dr. Mitchell Krynen on the stand. He's a late-term abortionist. He is a researcher in abortion at the University of California, Davis. Very, very prominent guy in the field. But that was interesting because you're putting in a medical expert instead of the actual alleged victims in a consumer fraud case. So in a consumer fraud case, you're the prosecutor. Think about it. A prosecutor who is prosecuting, whether criminally or civilly, you want to start by telling the story. Hey, who was harmed? What did these defendants do? What crime was committed? What civil wrong was committed? And because there were no victims, they had no victims to put up to start off and tell the story. They're starting off with a medical expert. So that tells you a lot about the strength, or at least the way the other side is perceiving their case.
But as you stated in your press release in the summary, the AG is not seeking to ban abortion pill reversal because it's legal. So how are they going to get this case to fly if they're not seeking a ban, if they're saying it's false advertising and then still claiming that this is okay on the books? That makes no sense. Right.
Well, and actually one of the claims, so they have 8 different things. They said, oh, you said this wrong. But one of the things we say is abortion pill reversal is safe and effective. If you as a physician can't say that a particular medical intervention is safe and effective, how in the world are you going to recommend it or ethically use it with your patients? Mm-hmm. So the Attorney General said, we're not looking to ban this outright. We're just saying that you can't talk about it essentially at all. You can't pitch it to people. If you can't say something is safe and effective, how am I supposed to recommend it in any way, shape, or form as a medical professional? Mm-hmm. But obviously there are hundreds, if not thousands, of medical professionals across the country who are using APR, who are willing to help administer it, who would be glad to give supplemental progesterone to a woman who reaches out to them in this situation. So it is. I mean, the entire thing is incredibly. It's just. It's in bad faith, I guess I would say. But really, this is the thing. They're using legal trickery to try to shut this down. And really, there are thousands of live babies today because of abortion pill reversal. And so those babies would likely not be here with us today if not for the work of the Abortion Pill Rescue Network, Heartbeat International, Dr. Delgado, who helped to popularize it. Mm-hmm.
Right. Talking with Peter Breen, Executive Vice President and Head of Litigation for the Thomas More Society. So how do you think this is going to go, given where this case is being heard and presented? Peter, what do you think?
Well, we are vigorously fighting it. I have to tell you, Teresa, we actually have some APR moms who are going to come to court and testify.
I was going to ask you that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that is absolutely, that's coming. We are, so this past week we just had the first witness. Next week we're doing the cross-examination of Dr. Krynen. So That is going well. We're essentially picking apart all of his claims because he says, well, your studies are no good, and in fact, they're barely evidence at all. Well, as it turns out, he has no evidence that it was fraudulent. These are real, the case series that we've got hundreds and now actually thousands of actual results from people who've been helped. So we're picking that apart, picking apart his expert opinion. Next up will be a statistics expert. So they'll present him. I'll cross-examine him. And then we're going to hear from Joel Godsey, the president, the head of Heartbeat International, to talk through what Heartbeat is about and what Heartbeat is doing. It's interesting the way the other side, the prosecution, is calling Jarrell, even though he's our Heartbeat president. So they're going to viciously cross-examine him, and then I get to question him on direct, and get to tell the story finally. So we're really looking forward to that, being able to tell the story. What is abortion pill reversal? Who is Heartbeat? What are we doing? So when you're dealing with a neutral judge, he doesn't know what the pro-life movement's about or all that. So really being able to tell the story. Hey, how was Heartbeat founded? It would be at this point millions of women served, helped, pregnant women in need. So we're really looking forward to telling that story and getting that out in the next week. And then we're just going to continue on. We've got Dr. Delgado coming to testify.
I was going to say, you have to be bringing him to testify, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is going to be, we've called it the pro-life trial of the century because it is, the issue is a very discreet one, abortion pill reversal. But really, the whole pregnancy center movement, all of that is on trial. And so we intend to put forward a great story and a great defense of our movement. And also, frankly, to talk about the chemical abortion regimen. Right. And the fact that it's got, in fact, we had evidence the other day, 3.5% to 7% complication rates. Mm-hmm. So you're talking maybe 1 in 20 women are having a serious complication from using chemical abortion. So that evidence is coming in. So there's a lot of uncomfortable evidence for the abortion movement that's coming in through this trial. And we're using every opportunity to make sure that we tell our story, both as pregnancy center defendants, but also as the whole movement.
What gives you the indication, what kind of a background this judge, by whom was this judge appointed? And you said neutral, and you're confident that this person will be open-minded on the bench?
Well, look, we're so this is a bench trial. You always, judges are going to come from various backgrounds, and so you take. A judge is supposed to be neutral and listen to the facts, and especially when you're doing a bench trial, the judge acts both as the judge and the jury. Right. And so it's a unique role for him or her. And in this case, we have a judge who we're presenting evidence to, and his job is to be neutral, and we're very confident that we're going to get a good hearing, and we think that we're very confident in our evidence. We're confident in our legal theories. Very hopeful for a good result, but we're committed to take this case as far as it has to. I hope we don't have to go to the Supreme Court to get an ultimate victory on this, but we will do that if we need to. The entire movement is at stake here. If the AG of California is able to bankrupt the largest network of pregnancy centers in the country, there's really nothing else that can be done. That is catastrophic. And so we're not going to let that happen.
How soon do you think there will be a decision in this, Peter, once you're done with the trial?
Well, so we're going to go for about, 5 or 6 weeks in trial. Okay. There will be post-trial briefing. Yeah, so there will be post-trial briefing. We'll have a final argument. Yes, at least that's where we're looking. So it'll be a few months. But really, what I would be looking out, first off, we need everyone's prayers right now that the evidence comes in well, that everything is done properly. Our witnesses and our attorneys are just sharp, but then you're going to see articles, and we're hoping to get some great evidence put in now, a formal record to establish certain things about the pregnancy center movement, about the wonderful nature of abortion pill reversal. We're hoping to get good rulings on that, on the evidence, so that we don't have to keep fighting this. We're also fighting a case against the New York Attorney General, same case. We want to take this evidence out east and be able to shut that case down too. So we've got a lot of, there's a lot riding on this particular trial.
Now, in terms of the courts, what level is this? This is district court, federal court in California. What are we looking at?
Right. So this is a state court.
State court, I was going to say. State court of California.
Court.
Okay.
Yeah, state trial courts. I don't know if you used to, it's the Superior Court, Alameda County. And so we are in Oakland. It's right downtown in Oakland. And it's I don't know. It's Oakland. So if just with everything that, that's been part of. So we walked to court the other day, and it's a gritty
Well, it's
town.
fascinating because they wouldn't be doing this if Heartbeat wasn't making a huge impact in their business, right? I mean, why bother if they don't have an impact on it, right?
Absolutely, and the fact that both the California Attorney General and the New York Attorney General did similar cases, and we know they talked to one another.
Yep.
They are desperate to try to shut down our movement. So it's in the pro-abortion states, they've stopped just promoting abortion. Now they want to shut down the pro-life movement. This particular hook that they have found, they've been trying different things over the years. We think there's nothing to this, but at the same time, they've been able to get past motions to dismiss. Here we are, having spent hundreds of thousands in attorney's fees, if not, there'll be millions by the end.
Peter, we have to wrap up, but I'll tell you what, I'd love for you to join us as this continues and to see how it's going in terms of the testimony, especially when Dr. Delgado testifies. We'll be right back. Wishing you a wonderful Friday morning. It is June 26, 2026. Great to be with you on a Friday. End of June, moving into the beautiful month of July and celebrating, of course, our nation's big birthday. Coming up next weekend, 250 years, as Peter Gagnon said, so much to celebrate, so much great programming. Make sure you stay tuned right here to EWTN. And for all the details, don't forget, if you didn't write anything down during the interview with Peter, that's fine. No worries. Keep your arms and hands inside the vehicle at all times, especially if you are driving. And just go to our website, EWTN.com. And stay tuned to our number 2 of Catholic Connection on EWTN's Radio Extra. For our 2 cents segment, I want to take a look at the response, and it's just mind-boggling to me. It just cracks me up. Well, it doesn't. I have to laugh or else I'll cry. This is kind of along the lines of Fact Check Friday, but I didn't have a chance to go into it because I wanted to brag on the wonderful EWTN Academy and what that program does, not just for those who are participating, but for the entire church, because at the end of the day, it's creating great, faithful communicators. But anyway, so you may have seen this story. EWTN News, we covered it. EWTN News Nightly had it. The Register had it. And all the good, solid Catholic sources. Vatican News had it. So the German bishops were trying to get the Vatican to approve laity giving homilies. I don't know if they were surprised when the Vatican said no can do and gave a very detailed and beautiful explanation reminding them of church teaching. But now the media are saying this is exposing a different agenda of the Pope. Spare me, and I don't mean bowling. We'll explain in 2 cents. And then we'll take a look at the Catholic response to AI. How much our parish is using AI. We'll find out about that as well. Hour number 2.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Happy Friday. It's hour number 2 of Catholic Connection here on EWTN, Global Catholic Radio's app, which is EWTN Radio Extra. Great to be with you on a Friday. Wishing you a beautiful and a peaceful weekend. Hope you're enjoying summer, even though the days are starting to get a little bit shorter. And 4th of July weekend coming up next weekend, which I love, even though we'll still be across the pond here in Italy. We'll be celebrating with some fellow Americans and remembering all of you back home. And I'll tell you what, this is such a great time of year, but what's kind of a bummer is once the summer comes about on the calendar, the days start to slowly get shorter. And I love summer, so then I start getting depressed. It's like, yay, it's summer! But oh no, the days are getting shorter. Anyway, I digress. But it's going to be a great weekend and a great week and another great weekend next week because we have such a big celebration in the United States of America, 250 years. I had some projects that I had to wrap up here, so unfortunately we couldn't get back home for the 4th of July holiday, but we'll be watching online and celebrating in our own way here, probably making a very American 4th of July dinner as we did last year, which was a lot of fun. We had our neighbors over and they loved it. We made hamburgers and chicken wings and had fun at all-American stuff for pranzo, for a late pranzo, which is the big meal in Italy. Coming up on the program today, we've got some great discussions happening. First in our 2 cents segment, which again kind of goes back to Fact Check Friday, but I couldn't fit it in, so I wanted to carry it over into the second hour of the program. How many of you heard about the Vatican's proper and, of course, expected response to the German bishops regarding lay homilies at Mass? So anybody could preach. That's what the bishops in Germany are saying should happen. And they know it's not going to happen. I think what they like to do in terms of people who are going against the church teaching and what has been settled church doctrine and dogma is just to throw it out there and to get people talking about it, because somehow those who think they know better than the Holy Father and decades and centuries of church teaching figure out if the media get it and they talk about it enough, Pope Leo and others in the Vatican are going to say, oh, wow, I could have had a V8. Why didn't we think of that? Not going to happen. So here's one headline on this story. The Vatican said no to the bishops when they put forth that they thought it would be a good idea if others besides the deacons and the priests can give the homilies at Mass. So lay women or lay men. Vatican blocks women's homilies. Listen to this subtitle: Testing Leo's View of Women in the Church. That has nothing to do with the Pope's view of women in the church. Women can do and are doing many things in the church, including preaching and teaching all over the place, just not in Mass. Okay? And if the media would take some time and maybe open the catechism or look at the documents or read the fine letter that the Vatican sent back to the bishops, perhaps they would have a better understanding of church teaching and report more accurately, especially with the headlines, and stop inferring that all of a sudden the Holy Father is some chauvinist who doesn't care about women, which is certainly not the case. So we will discuss in 2 cents. That will be our segment for this morning in the second hour of Catholic Connection on EWTN's Radio Extra. And then we are going to see how much parishes are using AI. Terry Poplava is going to be joining us, and we are going to take a look at the American Beliefs Study and the stance on parishes using AI at their parish level. It'll be very interesting indeed. So that's the second hour of Catholic Connection here on a Friday morning. Do hope you can stay for the entire hour. Weather-wise, extremely critical fire weather is still in store. They're saying that's expected to develop across the Great Basin and Southwest. That'll happen today. And exceptionally dry and windy conditions promoting rapid wildfire spreading throughout the weekend. We have scattered severe thunderstorms and heavy rain possible across parts of the Ozark Plateau into the lower Ohio Valley and parts of the northern Rockies into the adjacent Great Plain area. That's a look at the weather, and that's our rundown. It is time for the news. Again, it is a Friday morning, June 26th. Great to be with you here on EWTN's Radio Extra. Vatican News is reporting this morning, as James Blears explains, that the Holy Father is sending an initial €100,000 in emergency donations to Venezuela. That is to help with the rescue efforts that continue following devastating earthquakes that have killed at least 235 people and left widespread destruction.
Rescue teams are searching scores of collapsed buildings following the Wednesday evening quakes, which measured 7.2 and then 7.5. Caracas's Simon Bolivar airport is closed, but the main epicenter of the disaster is in the coastal city of Quera, to the north of the capital, Caracas. Such was the force of the twin quake that its deadly ripples were felt throughout the entire continent of the Americas. President Delcy Rodriguez has declared a state of disaster and emergency. Interior Minister Diosdado Caballo is advising people to stay outside wrecked infrastructure in the dusty open air. The damage is massive and widespread. The death toll will rise as the extent of the sheer devastation unfolds in its terrible enormity. For Vatican Radio, James Blears reporting.
The U.S. also sending help. They're sending more, specifically crews and supplies to Venezuela following those earthquakes. Speaking in Bahrain, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said this week help is on the way.
Already deploying search and rescue teams from Fairfax County, Virginia, and Los Angeles. There'll be some others we'll add. That's their most immediate need right now is search and rescue efforts.
At least 235 people have been killed, with that number expected to rise, and 4,300 people are reported missing. Those are the latest numbers coming out of Venezuela, where the president, Delcy Rodriguez, has declared a state of emergency. The Supreme Court is siding with President Trump on border policy, as John Fink explains.
The justices ruled the federal government can turn back some asylum seekers at the U.S.-Mexico border without hearing their claims right away. The practice known as metering limits how many people can apply each day and has been used by both Republican and Democratic administrations. The court says federal law does not require a claim to be processed if a migrant has not set foot on U.S. soil. The ruling could allow the policy to return, which may affect crossings at busy ports like those in San Diego. I'm John Fink.
The U.S. bishops, meanwhile, had been urging the government to extend protected status, including for Haitians who are in a majority Catholic community. They petitioned the Supreme Court, EWTNnews.com tells us, to rule against the policy and require the government to process all asylum claims. And President Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson had a meeting at the White House last night. Afterward, Johnson said he and the president spoke about members of the House Freedom Caucus, saying they will oppose any procedural rules until the Save America Voting ID Act passes, effectively stopping all business in the U.S. House.
Very productive meeting. We're on exactly the same page. He wants to ensure that we stop any blockade in the House. Congress has work to do, and that's what we're going to do. And so we'll be moving forward on all of that.
After his meeting with Johnson, Trump indicating he agrees with Johnson and posted House Republicans should unify and stop voting down rules, or threatening to do so, adding, "No more grandstanding, please." On Wednesday, the president saying he would not sign that bipartisan housing measure until the Save America Act was indeed passed. House Speaker Johnson now saying Congress will send that bill to Trump to sign, but did not specify when. Mark Mayfield tells us Iran now being accused of attacking a Singapore-flagged ship in the Strait of Hormuz.
U.S. officials told Fox News there were no casualties, but the incident comes during a tenuous time in the new U.S.-Iran peace deal. Freedom of navigation in the strait is a key point in the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding, with the U.S. demanding Iran never charge tolls. But Iran says they could enforce fees after the current 60-day pause expires. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio attended a meeting of Gulf nations in Bahrain and said those nations are also committed to seeing free flow of maritime traffic in the strait. I'm Mark Mayfield.
The president welcoming a group of American farmers from across the U.S. to the White House for dinner in the Rose Garden. Trump saying his administration is doing a great deal to help those farmers.
We've reduced the agricultural trade deficit just this year by 42%. Opening markets to the American exports, and all over the world we're opening up markets for the farmers.
Trump again saying the Iranian money being unfrozen by the U.S. in the peace agreement will be used to buy food from American farmers. The event last night comes as the president has ramped up his efforts to court the group ahead of the midterms after farmers experience rising fertilizer costs sparked by the Iran war and pressure under his administration's tariff agenda. White House spokesperson Olivia Wales saying in a statement there is not a greater champion for American farmers, growers, and ranchers than President Donald Trump. Vatican News is reporting a new English edition of The Lord Holds Us by the Hand offers readers a collection of unpublished homilies by Pope Benedict XVI, allowing readers to hear once again the voice of Joseph Ratzinger as preacher, theologian, and pastor. The volume, originally published in Italian by the Vatican Publishing House, gathers homilies delivered between 2005 and 2017 during the liturgical season of Advent, Lent, and Easter. Some were preached in the chapel of the Apostolic Palace, while others were given at the Mater Ecclesiae Monastery in the Vatican, where Benedict XVI lived after he resigned from the papacy. Although spoken in many private settings, the texts open a window onto the depth and simplicity, the Vatican says, of Benedict XVI's preaching, adding, they reveal his ability to read sacred scripture in an ever-new way, drawing from it light for faith, prayer, and daily Christian life. The Texas Board of Education has granted preliminary approval to a planned rewrite of social studies lessons that emphasize Christianity.
We're bringing the Bible back into schools this week for the first time in 60 years.
That's board member Brandon Hall. Children as young as kindergarten would learn about Adam and Eve and the parable of the prodigal son. Final votes are expected today. And the feds investigating the attack of a Texas woman as a possible hate crime. Police in Longview, Texas, say they are taking seriously reports that the attack was motivated by support for Carmelo Anthony, whose murder conviction has inspired people to challenge the decision.
We don't let anger become retaliation, and we do not let social media become judge and jury.
Officer Ladarian Brown announcing they have made one arrest but did not release any details. A victim in a post to social media claiming her attackers were looking to, quote, target the smallest white girl they could find, end quote. And as we mentioned in the weather forecast, millions of Americans in the western part of the country are sweltering as a heat wave brings triple-digit temps to a wide area, as Ryan Chandler gives us the details.
From southeast California all the way to Lubbock, Texas, seeing triple digits that could extend past 110 degrees. The National Weather Service putting in extreme heat alerts for Arizona, where they warn some parts of that state could see temperatures past 112 degrees.
The intense heat, along with dry and windy conditions, have been fueling wildfires in the Mountain West. The National Weather Service says hot weather will move into the eastern half of the country starting next week, bringing increasingly humid wet weather and temperatures in the 90s. And lawyers for murder suspect Luigi Mangione have had discussions with federal prosecutors about a possible plea deal ahead of a scheduled Monday morning court hearing. Sources telling NBC News an agreement looked closer earlier in the week but has since fallen through. News of the federal plea talks follow recent indications in the state case that the defense might look to pursue a psychiatric defense. And finally, in our news segment on it is a Friday morning, a sleep specialist is giving tips for falling asleep. Dr. Michelle Droop is a sleep medicine specialist at the Cleveland Clinic. She says it should only take you about 10 to 20 minutes to fall asleep, and any shorter could suggest some sleep deprivation or an underlying sleep issue. So there you go. It is a Friday morning. We'll be right back with 2 cents, yours and mine. Stay tuned. Minutes past the hour on a Friday morning. It is June 26th, entering into the weekend, and the last weekend of this June for this year, moving into the beautiful month of July and the big celebration in the US of A, 250 years, our birthday. So much to celebrate, as you heard in the first hour of the program, with Peter Gagnon, head of our EWTN studios, and all the great patriotic and faith-filled programming we have for you every day, of course, but specifically much more patriotic because of the celebrations we're having over the next week or two here in the United States of America. So in 2 cents this morning, what I wanted to discuss is something that really I think is very important for all of us when we see these stories in the news, being able to understand the reality of the situation from a truly Catholic perspective, which is what we do here every single day, but to help you understand why the church teaches what she teaches, and how unfortunately even some in the church who have very important pastoral roles may not agree with church teaching and want to encourage the Vatican to change it. And then when the media pick it up, the media don't have a true understanding. For the most part, there are still very few, but a few beat reporters that are covering the Vatican. But even those reporters, while they may be good writers and at least accurate, don't really have a deep, deep understanding and faith. More than most, but you see that in their writing in terms of their agendas. Okay, so case in point would be this recent story that developed in the last 10 days, actually. Okay, so I'm looking at a Vatican story from vaticannews.va, and you can check it out. We also covered it on EWTNnews.com, and I'll get to it. And this has to do with why laypersons, both women and men, cannot give a homily. The homily, of course, takes place at the Mass. Lay people are free to teach and preach in many other areas. We'll get to that in a second. So I want to take you back to a story. This is many years ago when I was just starting out in Catholic media, and I was on one of the local talk shows for one of our CBS affiliates, this TV show. And the name of the show should give you some indication of the type of atmosphere and format. It's still on the air, by the way. Vanessa and I have been on it. Vanessa Garmo and I have been on it many times. It's called Let It Rip. And what they do is they get a very, very, controversial topic or some measure that's coming up in Detroit or the state of Michigan. It's a localized program. And they bring people on both sides to debate. Now, I stopped taking part in that program many years ago because oftentimes it would turn into a shouting match. And it's like, it's not going anywhere. That's going down a rabbit hole. And that's what they want. They want this situation to develop to where people are, at each other's throats. But anyway, when one of the anchors, he's now retired, who's a friend of mine, was still there, I said, okay, well, I know this person, so I'll go on with him. And it was about women in the church. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, was it about the time John Paul II's canonization? I can't remember. Anyway, so they brought me on, and before the interview, this host with whom I had a friendship and know for many years in the media, said to me, why can't you be a priest? Why can't you be a priest? You're, educated in your faith. You're an experienced speaker. You're a great broadcaster. Why can't you be a priest? You'd be great. And I looked at him and I said, firstly, because the church and God say so. And secondly, because equality doesn't always mean sameness. And thirdly, I said to him, I can preach every day with the support of my pastor, my bishop, and I speak to many more people than most priests reach in a lifetime because of the gift of speaking on national and international radio. I said, so why do I have to do this from the altar? And there's good reason why the church says no. We don't have time to go into the whole thing, but he looked at me like, oh, I never thought of those points. Let's get back to the story at hand, all right? The dicastery for, which is part of why I shared with you that story in terms of the way the media often look at this issue, but the dicastery for divine worship and the discipline of the sacraments responding to a request made by the German bishops denying their petition for a layperson to preach the homily during Mass, even in exceptional cases, stating that the proclamation of the word in the liturgical celebration is inseparable from the mission received sacramentally. The Vatican reaffirming the current discipline cannot be dispensed since the reservation of the homily to a priest or deacon is not merely a disciplinary norm, but derives from the very nature of the liturgy. The dicastery reiterating the homily, which forms an integral part of the Mass, intricately linked to the proclamation of the gospel and constitutes an exercise entrusted to ordained ministers through the sacrament of holy orders. It added the proclamation of the word within the liturgical celebration is inseparable from the mission received sacramentally and from the unity that binds together word and sacrament in the Eucharistic celebration. The letter also emphasized the importance of promoting the ongoing formation of ordained ministers so that the homily may fully express its pastoral and spiritual effectiveness. Finally, the dicastery recalled that the Church's current discipline already provides for numerous forms of proclaiming the word and preaching that may be entrusted to lay members of the faithful outside the homily and outside the celebration of the Eucharist, in accordance with canon law and the proper nature of these different forms of proclaiming the gospel. And this is the key here, brothers and sisters. This is what the world and the media, and unfortunately even some in the church, don't either understand, want to understand, and don't want to accept. Okay? It is not just a matter of opinion. Well, this pope thinks it's great to have women up there, anybody outside of a deacon and a priest, saying the homily. Let's change it. It'll make women happier in the church. It doesn't work that way because of the beautiful structure of the Mass. It's extremely important, and the role of the deacon and the priest, and the sacramental nature of the two parts of the Mass, the liturgy of the Word and the liturgy of the Eucharist. So see, the media and the world, and again, as I said, even some people in the church think, we can change that. We can do this, we can do that, we can go according to our whim. If we think there is an exception, maybe the priest isn't feeling well or the deacon isn't available, let's just let someone else go up there and preach. They're a good teacher, they know the faith. And that's just how the media treat it. And then they think that it says something about how the church views women. And this didn't even mention women specifically in the letter. It said the laity. And so it's actually the media that are trying to make this a female thing or an anti-female thing in the church. So here's a story from MSN. Vatican blocks women's homilies, testing Leo's view of women in church. It's not testing anybody's view of women in the church. This has to do with the sacrament, the liturgy of the word, and the liturgy of the Eucharist. None of that is mentioned in this article or many other secular media outlets. And this particular story that was posted on MSN is actually from the Religious News Service. That's a whole nother segment. Early on, Pope Leo signaled support for women's leadership in the Catholic Church. But a new Vatican decision released on June 23rd, barring lay people, including women, from preaching the homily at Mass, is testing how far that openness is likely to go. No, it's not. It is simply sticking to the truth that the Mass is the Mass, and you can't change it on a whim because you think you need a variety of people to preach. The media would do themselves a lot of good if they just studied church teaching, even for a few minutes. And so would some of the church. We'll be right back. Great way to wrap up a Friday program with great information from a somewhat regular guest. I've known him for a long time, Terry Poplava, General Manager of ACST Catholic. And Terry, today we're talking about the Catholic responses to new research regarding using AI at the parish level. This, of course, is very important and interesting, especially with the Holy Father's new encyclical. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Teresa. Great to be with you.
All right, so give us some of the points in this, the responses from the parishes about AI.
So really interesting. There's some good news, and there's always some worrisome things because I think the Pope has given us a really good framework to bring this to conscious thinking to make sure it's all on all of our minds. But the research actually was kind of broad in, like, who do you look for in leadership and what do you expect from leaders and who would you be open to developing a relationship with? And then part of it is like, well, and you know, what do you see with AI? How would you use it? And the two big things that I pulled out that I thought were very interesting. One was of it was kind of a reverse question. Who is most likely to lie to you? You know, and choosing this. AI came out a lot better than not all. There's some good news in this, but a lot better than most of the public voices that we hear. That we trust AI certainly more than politicians or government, but also journalists and news people, and even we trust AI more than lawyers. And that's a little worrisome. You know, one of the other research efforts I've seen from a few years ago is people, you know, we do tend to turn to technology we call it, you know, looking it up on the internet to kind of assess our own needs. And so AI just sort of supercharges that in new ways. So that's a little bit of a concern. But on the flip side, the good news in this was the top things that we think should be used at our parishes, the way we think it should be used. The top two things are really about language translation, which I think is wonderful. It's like translating ministry content into different languages, the real-time sermon or homilies, and actually I'm aware of some technology for presentations that's you know, I probably should stop short of saying like Pentecost, but it's like the speaker speaks in a language and you hear it in your language in real time. I think that's wonderful, and I think I was really gratified to see those things as the first things that people chose, rather than like creating a new liturgy or there is some writing homilies in there. It's lower, but it's lower, and I think that if that's happening, I sure hope that anyone who does use it for their homilies is using it maybe as for some ideas and not actually
and not just script word for word. Yep,
right.
Absolutely. So I want to go through a couple of the points. Assisting, as you mentioned, with language translation, newsletters, reports, and routine communications. Analyzing parish data to better understand engagement and discipleship trends. This next one, being married to a deacon, I find really important. Free clergy, staff, and volunteers from administrative burdens so they can devote more time to pastoral care and personal accompaniment. That's a really great point as well.
Yes, and it's really important, I think. I mean, the whole point, and now you're getting a little bit into like ACST Catholic and some of what we're doing in addition to what the survey is saying, but the critical point in all of this is that we find time to be more relational and more personal. And Teresa, I've been still very focused on this issue of loneliness and welcoming. So to me, this should enable us to be more welcoming and more in person. And so that's what, in our systems, what we've done is create a secure environment that allows you to ask normal questions rather than having to write queries to get information that helps you know what's changed or what people need or what ministry they need very quickly and simply. AI has enabled that in a way that's never been possible before, that normally would require someone to figure out how do you go search the database for that. So we've put that in place, and that is very much about freeing time and giving you the information you need so you can really be a minister in person.
Now, let's go back to the American Belief Study, because this is ongoing research and the religious preferences and practices. Tell us about it in general if people aren't familiar with it.
So this is it's a longitudinal survey that's been being done since 2013. The data I've tracked in research is since 2017. And it is a survey of typically 15,000 respondents, cross-denominational survey. This particular one was smaller. It was 1,500 that we did. But Catholics are usually between 25 and 30% of respondents. And what I've been doing is pulling the Catholic information out so we understand specifically what Catholics are saying. But this, the American Belief Study is about our religious preferences, our top concerns, and our core beliefs, in addition to some of these more particular questions. So it's given us a view over time of what are our beliefs about Jesus Christ and God and the sacraments? What is it we're looking for in a parish? What are our top concerns for our parishes? Why are we staying away from attending Mass? What keeps us away? All of that kind of information is what we've been tracking now for 13, 14 years.
Mm-hmm. Now, what I think is really important, and you started the interview out with this, Terry, in terms of trusting AI more than trusting social media influencers, politicians, lawyers, and news anchors. I'm wondering if this is more of a statement about how bad the politicians, media influencers, lawyers, and news anchors are versus how great AI is. They're so low on the totem pole in terms of being respected that people are looking to AI more seriously than these people who should be maybe considered important in terms of what they bring to the table.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. And actually, when I look at the rest of the data, we, thank heavens, we still do, even though I will say this, our research shows that one of the top reasons people stay away is they don't trust religious leaders. We trust our religious leaders more than we trust AI. So I guess that's good news. But we also trust our parents and our friends more, and our doctors more than AI. So it's not as if AI is the thing we trust most. I found it entertaining that we trust it more than all of these other things. And yeah, I think it is the state, probably largely the state of what's been happening.
I also think, and again, not to be biased, but being married to a deacon and having an insider track on looking at how busy clergy are, especially pastors and associate pastors, the fact that they recognize that the clergy, the staff and the volunteers, need some help, right?
Absolutely. We're trying to do, we're in this dilemma of needing to be more in person with fewer ordained people to accomplish it. And you and I have talked about this in the past. There's two aspects to this. One is those who are looked to be the people to minister to us need to know at any moment in time the most important place for them to be, the place where the person is most in need, or if it's a casual interaction, to have quick information that allows them to be, meaningful and personal and know something about that person. And so we've done some voice activation into phone-based applications that allow that to happen now for ministers and for deacons. The other part of it is that I lost track of the other point.
That's okay. We'll pick it up. We hear the music. The music's coming up. We'll pick it up on the other side of the break. You have time to gather your thoughts. There's so much great information here, Terry. We're so glad you're with us. Terry Poplava, General Manager of ACST Catholic. More on this great research when we come back. Happy Friday. Hope it's going beautifully for you. And thank you for tuning in to Catholic Connection, having a great conversation with Terry Poplava. He's been on with us many times. I've known him for many years, including with his work at wonderful Our Sunday Visitor and Catholic Leadership Institute before his current focus, serving the church at ACS Technologies as a general manager of ACST, talking about what Catholics have told us about AI. All right, so the research is quite eye-opening, and we were chatting during the break about how younger people in the church, and I would say even in the Christian world, are looking toward AI and to AI, Terry, and you know this, not only for most of their information, for functioning, but also for spiritual guidance, as opposed to coming in and maybe getting a spiritual director in person or sitting down with their pastor. That, to me, is kind of scary.
Very scary and a dilemma for our church. So while what we're really focused on with what we're enabling is what we talked about before, it's for administrators or even lay leaders to have quick information that allows them to be more personal. The other aspects of AI for digital natives that are mostly our younger generation is it's very convenient to already just for people who are already interacting with their devices. We're starting to see that this is becoming a counseling service, or even in some cases a spiritual guide for them, because it begins to seem so personal, even though it's man-made and man-created. In a recent webinar I did that included Brett Robinson from the McGrath Institute at Notre Dame, he calls it a new solipsism, where not only are we not tribal, the younger people are becoming so individualized that we're caught up in our own interaction with something that's feeding back essentially what we want to hear, and it's just a cycle of repeating the kind of information that you think you want to hear, and it's very much a false god.
Yeah, and it's a confirmation bias,
concern.
and a lot of reporters do that in the media. They go out and they seek the sources with whom they agree. They don't want anybody who disagrees because they want to push a particular agenda. And also in terms of what qualities they're looking for before seeking guidance, they want the person to be non-judgmental. Well, okay, only God judges hearts, but if you're coming in for advice and you're telling your spiritual director that you're not going to Mass, you don't think it's something interesting, or that you don't believe in confession, or that you believe in abortion, sorry, I mean, you're going to have to be corrected because they have your soul is at stake.
Yes, I think there's nuances to that, but let's just hit one thing first, and that is we have, with digital natives, they're more comfortable interacting with their device than they are with people. And so, I mean, and yet our church is totally relational. The Catechism teaches us to be in person. The Pope Leo has talked about the need to be embodied in our faith, and it's so easy to be interacting with devices, and all of that is stopping short of an embodied faith. So clearly, yes, we somehow need to reach everyone, and even those of us who are a little bit lazy about attending, to remind ourselves, if you remember, one of the research efforts we did was like, what do we mean by warm and friendly? Because that we're seeking warm and friendly encounters, and it's all about everyone interacting with each other, even with a sign of a smile or a welcome or an invitation. So it's all about us interacting with each other. And the people who are digital natives are looking for it, and they're looking for, of course, the the mysticism of Mass, but they don't know that they are. The challenge with, I think, the first step in terms of of non-judgmental is somehow we've got to make an initial connection that even begins with a conversation.
No, I get that. I understand that, because
right?
you want someone who's going to, I mean, you don't have someone walk into your office as a spiritual director, and say you're going to, where in a handbasket. I mean, you're not going to win anybody over by getting them over having the catechism and the Bible. You listen, you don't judge. God does the judging, but you also are also called to lovingly admonish and correct. And just talked about that with the gospel recently that we had, in terms of, what do we mean by do not judge? We judge actions because we have a legal system that in the secular world, but God is the one who judges the heart. I also find it interesting because you look at all this information. Let's say you pull back and do the zoom, the zoom out, as I say, from my TV background, and there's some of it that I think is conflicting. I mean, not on the end of your research, but at the same time that these young people are looking for more of a non-judgmental or a softer approach, you have so many of them that are drawn through conversion to the Catholic Church because of her structure, her beauty, and her teachings, which have not changed.
Absolutely, and in fact, want the most intensive Mass and religious experience that they can find. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, very much go all the way, do all of the things, all of the, as we call it, smells and bells, and
right.
the formality of it. So I think the issue is, how do you get them to experience it? Because then they find that is very much feeding them and what's missing. And you've got to get the first connection. So those who are showing up, I agree. Hopefully they'll talk to each other and start to begin, making that happen. And maybe, I don't know. I guess we all need to talk it up more too, just in terms of this amazing experience that we have. That is, it's beyond just. It's certainly beyond a meeting and attending an event. It's way beyond that, and you got to check it out. So we probably just need to talk that up more as well, I think. But you've got to get to the people who are never interacting with other people. So that's the challenge for us.
Have you found that the Pope's first encyclical is helping you in terms of your work and your research, backing up basically what you're doing?
I think so. I guess I'm of a couple of minds about it. He has, he expresses a lot of concern for it, but I do think everything he says is that technology is not inherently bad, mm-hmm. and really talks about our need to take ownership of it and make sure that we're focusing it on enhancing humanity and enhancing our humanness and our connection with each other. That's exactly where we need to be. The part that I also think, though, is that it has created some concern that may stop people from even feeling comfortable with using it in any way at all. So mm-hmm. I keep trying to emphasize what we've put in place is, it does this. What we do when you access our ministry platform using our AI interaction, it does not teach the AI, and that's the critical part of it. That data is not going into the AI; it's secured and protected from that. All it's doing is helping you in natural language do some amazing data translation and activity tracking and notification that is usually you have to somehow do it with something in the system, and now you don't have to go in the system at all to do it.
So where do they find that information? How can they get to it?
Well, on the product, then you can go to, for all of this, you can go to acstcatholic.com. For the study, mm-hmm. you go to the resource page, and there's a drop-down, and it's in news. But for product information, then ministry platform and information about our product is right on the homepage of the website. We'll lead you to the diocesan or parish connections on that, depending on what audience you are and what you'd like to know. www.acstcatholic.com.
Sure. Okay, acstcatholic.com. Now, what was the age group in this last round of surveys that you did with the 1,500 Americans?
So, I'm looking specifically at the Catholic age group, but it did break down in similar ways. I thought it was pretty good diversity in terms of how it how it was distributed. I need to enlarge a graph. But what we saw was actually, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, I'm looking at a pie chart, but it was around, like 25 to 28% Gen Z, similar percentage of millennial, a little bit more boomer, but normally boomer is the biggest response, and that might be more like 38%. So, and then interestingly enough, we also had a good representation of millennials too. So another 25% millennial. So you've got like 3/4 of it is Gen Z, millennial, and what am I missing?
Boomer.
Oh, Gen X. Yeah, Gen X, Gen Z, and millennial are 45% of the response. Very, very, very small response of our senior group, of our
Yeah, that kind of makes sense, though, if you think about they're not that tech savvy, so that might be where that's coming from, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not that interested at all. So, the word I was trying to think of is the...
Oops, are you there? Did we lose you?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
We are chatting with Terry Poplava, General Manager of ACST Catholic, talking about fascinating new information, what Catholics have told us about AI and why Pope Leo's guidance matters. So what will you be looking at next, Terry?
Okay, and I'm sorry about that. Ironically, it's the silence generation that I was trying to see the name of, and
sure.
I'm experiencing a bifocal fun here. Sorry about that.
That's okay, no worries.
Well, next, first of all, I want to probe a little bit more deeply into this, and I think I want to go now more into my favorite topic, and I'll be looking at how is all of this addressing and or enhancing our issue of loneliness. What is the challenge here for the Catholic Church, and how should we be responding in our churches with does the technology help or hurt? And in what way does it help or hurt? I think that's an ongoing question we have to keep asking ourselves. And is it working? And how much of it should we be applying so that we don't lose track of the need to actually be ministering to people in person? That's really it to me. And I think the rest of it has to be how can you use it to bring more layers of volunteer leaders, of ministers who are personally ministering to each other, and focusing on making sure we enable that.
Yeah, there's such a back and forth with the fact that the church has so many, first of all, beautiful teachings on media usage and doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater and does not say the media, all the media are intrinsically evil. The media can be there to benefit. They're used by so many of us to preach the gospel and to witness, which is important. But then at the same time, there's study after study. We just had one that came out last week, Terry, talking about that parents are spending more time on their phones and their devices during meals, which is a crucial time, than their children. So we still have a lot of work to do, but I think this is really helpful. And again, for me, going back to the practicality that people are recognizing that our leaders at the parish level, especially as you mentioned earlier, with the closing of churches and not enough staff, that they need assistance. So I find that very refreshing that they're aware, because sometimes you can feel, for example, and again, I'm coming at this from a deacon's wife perspective, where they expect you to do everything and not realize how much can be done or by them if they would help us a little bit. So I think that's great. So again, they can
enable the army of all the people in the church.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure. So enabling the army and also enabling them to understand it more deeply in terms of their role at the parish level, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I just finished reading Joseph Pieper's book on leisure time and the philosophical questions. And one of the things that still sits with me is that the highest form of leisure is time spent in divine worship.
There you go. Beautiful. Great way to end the interview, Terry. Thanks so much, Terry Poplava from ACST, and the website for all the great information we've been discussing, acstcatholic.com. We'll be right back. wishing you a great weekend. Don't forget to stay tuned closely to EWTN, EWTN.com, especially for all the great programming that Peter Gagnon mentioned in the first hour of the program that will be happening as we move into this huge celebration that will be wrapping up, of course, on 4th of July weekend, 250 years, the United States of America. Coming up Monday on Catholic Connection, Michael New, you know him from Catholic University, of course, and National Review Magazine. He's a pro-life leader and a professor at Catholic U, is going to talk to us a little bit more about the impact of the Dobbs decision as we look back on when that was overturned. So we'll be talking about that with Michael New. And then our very own Steve Ray, we sat down with him to do a very special interview all about Saints Peter and Paul, and it's going to be a great program on Monday. And of course, next Friday we'll be off for the special holiday weekend, and we look forward to bringing you great programming all week, though, leading up into that holiday weekend. And then next Friday, 1 week from today, we'll have a special edition of Catholic Connection for you. And again, all the details of the programming can be found at EWTN.com. And for the research from our previous guest, Terry, it is acstcatholic.com. Again, acstcatholic.com. Look forward to talking to you on a Monday morning with all of our wonderful guests and leading you through what's going to be a beautiful week of celebrations for the United States of America. Have a great weekend. Ciao, ciao.